Hey, welcome to the Moosecraft Shop. I'm Dr. Martin Pepper, and when I'm not teaching geology or working in a lab, I'm here building stuff. So to give you a quick little tour, this side is the metal shop, this side is the wood shop. Let me run you through my best friends. So, one of my super best friends is this metal lathe, and so this basically turns everything that's round. It's an engine lathe, so if I wanted to, I could actually make an engine out of it. And then next, we have a milling machine. So it's a Bridgeport. The cool thing is it cuts basically X, Y, and Z, so it cuts straight cuts. So I can do things round over there, square over here, and then my metal has been shaped. Over here we just have a vise and a little drill press, and then finally our bench grinder. So that's kind of what does the shaping of the metal. And then we jump over here, and I got oxyacetylene welding with gas, then two MIG welding machines, so you squeeze the trigger and wire feeds out. So I've got this little portable guy here, and then this beast here that can actually do spray transfer. And so what that does, chops the voltage basically, which atomizes the metal, and this can do everything from normal metal to stainless to aluminum to even titanium. I have a spool of titanium for that beast. Then we jump over here, got a plasma cutter. So it heats things up to the fourth state. You've got ice or solid, you got liquid, you got gas, and you have plasma. This basically oxidizes whatever it comes into touch with, and so it can just pierce right through any kind of a metal that conducts electricity. Next to that bad boy, we have a mini pulse TIG. And so this is what I used to do real fine metal work we'll talk about in a second. And then down here, we've got this old dinosaur. And so this cranks up to 400 amps. This is actually what I use to weld up like aluminum engine blocks. So throw a piston shaft through the side of the engine, I actually can put it back together with this. This also does arc welding if I want to weld with that old antique stick. But back to this sweet pulse TIG up here. So with that, I basically made this little rotating vise table. So what's cool about that is you flip a little switch here, turns on this little motor system, which cranks our little hand crank, and then I can put stuff in there that's round. And so look at this right here. And so using a pulse TIG, it sits there and does little spots, and those spots lay like a perfect set of dimes. Almost looks like a computer welded this. And so this is essentially most of the metal work. Back there we have hand tools, from a magnetic drill press to your grinders, your saws, even my favorite saw here in the background. It's a 16.5-inch hand skill saw. I call that one the Widowmaker for very good reason. So that's the metal side, more or less. Jump over here to the wood side. First thing you want is a ton of clamps, because no good woodworker has just a few clamps. You've got to clamp things together when you're trying to glue it up. So this is our clamp rack. I did lie to you for a second there. This is a metal, basically a precision grinder, but I really only use this to grind my wood planer blades and joiner blades. Then we have this thing down here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's disc sander, belt sander. Then we've got one of our wooden chop saws. Over here we have a router table, so lets you set up for precision routing. Here we have our wood joiner, so if you want to make the edge of a board really straight, you do that. This is a giant drum sander, and so basically if you're working with wood that has crazy grains, you don't want to tear it out with a flat planer blade. You can sand off things like bird's eye maple. You don't tear out that wood. So that's really, really beneficial. And then this is part of the auto section. So I have full tools to be a mechanic, work on diesel trucks, to motorcycles, to boats, to airplane engines. And so I use this little portable press to press out bearings and, knock some parts out. But back to the wood. So here is a new tiller handle that I'm making for this 30-foot sailboat that I'm rebuilding. So if you look at it, it's got basically fiddleback maple with walnut layers in there as well. And you might notice I also build sea kayaks. So up there is a 19-foot Badarka using strips of wood And then there's a 19-foot other sea kayak just using plywood. And then little model airplane there. It's remote control. And then a model tugboat that I actually built so I could pull myself in those kayaks. So I get lazy, don't want to paddle, fire up the tugboat. So then over here is a project I'm making with mesquite from a tree I cut down. So dropped this tree about a year ago, let it dry, finally used the shop to basically frame it up. So face frame, drawer fronts, and then this is the maple drawers themselves, another tree I cut down. And then finally we have our board planer here, dust collection here, table saw there, sheet metal shear there for working on sheet metal, a wooden lathe. It's getting late, so can't think of stuff. And then here's a weird little invention that I made with a chop saw, both for wood cutting, and then if you look, this thing flips over. I can do it with one hand, and then on top jumps my metal chop saw. So this is basically save space here in the shop. Oh, drill press over there, that's the big drill press. And let me also run over here, and down here, it's not gonna be that cool, but all these drawers, not that one, that one's empty, but all these drawers are for working with aircraft sheet metal. So all the riveting, cutting, bending, bucking bars, you name it, basically sheet an airplane. Now, here's my truck. It's a diesel Dodge. I'm a diesel nut. And I park it in the garage when I'm working at night just because I don't want it sitting out in the neighborhood. But it has a winch. And so what I've kind of invented are these pulley systems here that allows the winch cable to go up over the truck, around the back, and pull big trees into the truck. And so that's kind of a system that I use to do all the heavy lifting to get from trees to giant machines up into the truck and over here to the shop. And then finally, I've got this bandsaw here for cutting metal. And then this bandsaw that I turbo boosted from 2 horsepower to 5 horsepower for ripping all the wood that I cut with those trees. And so back here is just a bunch of specialty hardware, from titanium bolts to your plumbing fittings to aircraft hardware. But let's hop up top to the mezzanine. So basically a lot of hand tools and stuff, but a couple of fun little inventions. So here is an electric skateboard I built and designed. Even has disc brake stopping. And believe it or not, this can go 55 miles an hour. So extremely fast. So fast that it got stuck on full. I almost killed myself. So that's why it sits up here collecting dust. I got a giant powered rotary table here that someday I hope to actually rotate our house. So that's an invention I hope to get to someday. This is a dewar. You might be wondering, why do you have a dewar for liquid nitrogen? Well, when you're doing giant bearings and mechanics, you actually freeze them in liquid nitrogen. They drop into place. When they warm, they expand, and they're locked in position. So have that for doing big stuff. Finally, we have a stack of bandsaw blades. Make my own bandsaw blades. And then I have a little upholstery sewing system. So this is for sewing leather. It actually has 2 needles, so essentially 2 machines at once. Then we have a smaller upholstery machine. Backup drill press in case I burn one out. And then the chainsaw. So this is the big daddy that fits up into that milling system, and that's what we actually make boards with. And then all the other little chainsaws for limbing and dropping and doing whatever. And then a concrete / rock saw. So I actually use this to collect rock samples out in the field. Diamond blade, water cooled, absolutely sweet. And then to round it out, I've got this precision sharpener for sharpening my carbide milling bits. And then right back there is a Scuba Compressor, because I like to put things up to 4,000 PSI and watch them explode. A spot welder for working with sheet metal. That's about it. Thanks for the tour, or thanks for watching the whole tour.